Hello, we will analyze Napoleon's greatest defeats, the Siege of Acre and the Battle of Waterloo. Due to the sinking of his fleet at Aboukir, Napoleon was trapped far from his homeland. He was left with a small navy, but it was not enough to carry all the troops. Therefore, he had to take the fleet from the nearest shipyard to his region, and that place was Sidon. If he could take the navy and shipyards there, it would be easier to continue the siege. But there was a problem. In Sidon, there was the Acre fortress under the command of Cesar Ahmed Pasha. He could not take the shipyards and navy in Sidon without taking that fortress. Therefore, Napoleon had already taken settlements such as Gaza and Yafta, and was on his way to the fortress of Acre. On 20th of March 1799, the French army arrived in front of Acre. Then it besieged the fortress from all sides. Then he launched a continuous attack. Napoleon had heard that Cesar Ahmed Pasha was a tough commander. Therefore, shortly after he started the attacks, he sent him 2 letters. Both times he made promises. But when Cesar Ahmed Pasha had both ambassadors executed, Napoleon was furious and hardened the attacks. Despite the fierce attacks, the army in the castle was still resisting. In addition, the British Navy was also providing artillery fire. Napoleon started propaganda in addition to his attacks. He wanted to win the people to his side and achieve a decisive victory, but the people there were not in favor of this. The French attacks, which became increasingly fierce, continued uninterruptedly, but the French cannons often failed to penetrate the walls. The Ottoman forces were firing cannons from the castle, and their infantry were attacking the enemy, while the French were firing cannons and trying to breach the walls. Napoleon, who had achieved good success in Egypt, was surprised that the Ottoman troops resisted so much, believing that he could take the castle quickly, but he was wrong. The French troops, which were a regular army, were failing against the Ottoman troops, which were relatively disorganized compared to them. This caused the French troops to lose morale, and sometimes even senior officers were killed in the fighting, while the Ottoman troops also lost a lot of morale and thought that they were trapped inside the castle. But the leaders of both sides were trying to raise the morale of their troops. As the time progressed, the British Navy continued to bombard the French troops, while Cesar Ahmed Pasha was not idle and was doing hit and run with his horse troops and damaging the enemy, which was very annoying to the French. The French increased their attacks and managed to damage a part of the castle and captured the area of the castle called Ali Burku. Meanwhile, French soldiers were trying to dig tunnels to infiltrate the city, but these tunnels and sewers were discovered and destroyed by Ottoman troops. At that time, Baptiste Kleber, who was assigned by Napoleon against attacks from behind, and the Ottoman commander Ibrahim Bey came face to face. Kleber marched on Ibrahim Bey in order not to break the siege, while Ibrahim Bey first pretended to retreat and drew the enemy on him. And Kleber attacked Ibrahim Bey, whereupon the Ottoman and French troops started a pitched battle. The name of this battle was the Battle of Mount Taba, where the Ottoman troops, who were very numerous, caused serious damage to Kleber's army. Napoleon, who did not want to lose more soldiers, went to support Kleber with 6,000 soldiers and attacked Ibrahim Bey's troops. Ibrahim Bey, who had mostly inexperienced soldiers, could not coordinate his troops. In addition, the experienced commander Napoleon was destroying Ibrahim Bey's army. Ibrahim Bey's army, who could not fight anymore, was defeated. After this victory, the possibility of the siege being raided from behind was removed, and Napoleon returned to the siege. Until the end of April, the entire focus of the French was on capturing the bastion of Ali. The French were always trying to capture the region, but they could not capture that region. While this was happening, the Ottomans sent 3,000 Nizami Tedit soldiers to support the war with ships, and this event was a great morale boost for the Ottomans. The French army, which was already worn out, was demoralized when they heard this. The Nizami-Kedit army was the new army of the Ottoman Empire, more experienced and trained than most of the militias in Egypt. A system of suretyship was developed among each member of the January, thus preventing desertions. In the face of this army, Napoleon's chances of winning had gradually decreased. The French troops, who stubbornly continued to attack the Ali Bastion area, tried all kinds of tactics but could not capture the area. Although they sometimes achieved some success, it was not a complete success. The war was becoming increasingly exhausting for both sides. Unless one of the two sides took risks and tried new tactics, the attacks would be fruitless, and just at this time, when Cezar Ahmed Pasha exploded the armory in that area, the French were shocked and suffered an incredible loss. The French troops were dumbfounded by this event. Napoleon, who fought here for a while longer, did not want to lose any more soldiers because he thought that if he lost more, he would never get out of Egypt and would be trapped here. After careful consideration, he decided to lift the siege and retreat. Upon these events, Napoleon thought that he could not make any progress in Egypt, so he planned to put aside his dream of capturing Egypt and return to Europe. We can say that there are three main reasons for Napoleon's withdrawal from Egypt. The first of these, Napoleon, was heavily defeated by the British Admiral Nelson at the Battle of Abukir during the Egyptian campaign. This meant the destruction of a large part of the French navy and the closure of the supply routes to Egypt. The second reason was that Egypt presented a difficult environment for resupply due to its tropical climate and limited local resources. The French army had to adapt to Egypt's hot climate, limited water resources, and lack of food crops. The third reason was that the Ottoman army from Anatolia posed a great threat to Napoleon. It could arrive at any time, and he did not want to risk an irreversible defeat and perish with his army. For these reasons, Napoleon withdrew from Egypt. He would return to Europe, seize new opportunities, and continue his great campaigns. Undoubtedly, this defeat was a great experience for Napoleon. Battle of Waterloo. 18th of June 1815, Napoleon was still engaged in a continuous struggle with the coalition states with which he was at war. Napoleon's new targets were the British and Prussians, enemies he wanted to destroy. Having already achieved small victories in the battles of Quatre Bras and Ligny, the French army had managed to drive the enemy back towards Brussels, where it faced the British general and statesman Arthur Wellesley, also known as the Duke of Wellington. These two armies of almost equal strength were deployed and awaiting orders from their commanders. The Duke of Wellington had chosen the battlefield for himself and had taken a position accordingly. Napoleon's plan was to attack Hougoumont with a unit, draw the enemy's army in the center, attack the British center with his own troops, and destroy the British army. At 11:30, Napoleon made his first move and attacked Hougoumont, where British and French troops fought a bloody battle. The French almost captured Hougoumont, but the British resisted well, so Hougoumont had not yet been captured. According to Napoleon's plan, the British Centre Army should have gone to support Hougoumont, but Wellington made no such move. As the battle continued, Napoleon ordered the cannons to fire heavily and ordered a unit led by Comte d'Erlon to attack the British forces near La Haye-Sainte. The French troops fighting here could not make a successful attack because they were not fully coordinated. Wellington, seeing this, pushed the enemy back with the British cavalry, but the British horsemen who went too far were destroyed by the French. Duke Wellington, who did not want to lose Hougoumont, decided to send reinforcements here. Napoleon had made the enemy swallow his oath, but just as this was happening, Napoleon received the news that the Prussians were coming to the battlefield. He wanted to end the war before the Prussians arrived, so he sent a unit under the command of Michel Ney forward and sent it to La Haye-Sainte and started to support it with cannon fire from the rear. While the fighting was going on here, Wellington withdrew the British troops by 100-200 meters. But the French commander Michel Ney perceived this movement as a retreat of the enemy and attacked the British troops. But he made a big mistake and was trapped by the British troops in a fortress formation. The French, trapped here, tried to fight with all their might, but they almost perished because they suffered too many casualties. Just at this time, some of the Prussians had reached the battlefield. The French were seriously losing morale. But Napoleon ignored the unfavorable conditions. He ordered an attack on the Prussian troops around Papelotte. Napoleon ordered an attack on the central part of Michel Ney's army to save it. During the course of the battle, La Haie-Sainte was finally captured by the French, from which French guns fired continuously towards the center. In the face of these events, the British army was suffering serious casualties and the French morale had improved. Napoleon, who wanted to secure his right flank, continued to pressure the Prussian troops. The Prussian commander Blücher had reached the battlefield with the Prussian army, and the course of the war was becoming more or less clear. While this was happening, Napoleon himself attacked towards the British center. But the British morale was boosted when they saw the Prussians coming. The French troops, fighting with all their might, could not hold out any longer and began to retreat. Napoleon himself was forcibly removed from the battlefield. Let us examine the reasons why the French lost this war under 3 headings. The first is tactical errors. During the Battle of Waterloo, the French army made some tactical mistakes. For example, the French artillery could not damage the enemy's defense line sufficiently. In addition, the lack of coordination in Marshal Ney's attacks and the ineffective implementation of the military plan caused tactical problems. Secondly, the unification of the Allied powers. At Waterloo, the British army under Duke Wellington of Britain and the Prussian army under Prussian General Blücher formed Allied combined forces. The French had to counter the combined attack of these 2 forces, forcing the French army to fight on a double front. Thirdly, Napoleon's health problems. Napoleon's health condition made it difficult for him to display effective leadership during the Battle of Waterloo. His physical and mental health problems made it difficult for him to focus on strategy and tactics. The French, who fought with honor, were unfortunately defeated, and Napoleon surrendered to the Duke of Wellington and was exiled to the island of St. Helena, where he died in 1821. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, happy subscribing, liking, and commenting.